Just a quick little proviso that while we are cheerfully calling all vegans, the opinions and beliefs expressed by them do not always reflect our own.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Calling All Vegans show. We're here in front of a live studio audience at Wishbone Animal Rights Lab in Toronto. I'm your host, Sue Spar, and sitting in once again as co-host is Vish, our little ambassador of anti-speciesism who lives here at the lab. But even though casual speciesism is so prevalent and pervasive in our society, Vish knows that the people snapping turkey wishbones one day may go vegan the next. I'll just put you down there, buddy. We'll hope Romeo doesn't get hold of him, right? This is sort of an emergency episode, as we found out only recently that our guest today would be in town for We the Free weekend of connection and public outreach. Normally, we have 2 or 3 more interviews lined up for a show, so she's getting all the attention. Or at least she would have, except a dog and a baby showed up. So sorry about that. She's a hardworking animal rights activist, comedic podcaster and YouTuber, dramatic actress, and Gen Zetter for Generation Vegan. I had to say Zetter because it's Canada, okay? She even went toe-to-toe with Piers Morgan on his show on the topic of veganism and lived to tell the tale. So I'm dying to hear more about that. Please welcome Jamie Logan to Calling All Vegan. Hi.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now, I have to say, it's this crazy thing I have that I love the name Jamie for boys or girls, so I have to do this big gushy thing and tell the person how much I love the name. So it's okay if Sue's your favorite name. I won't like. I'm sure I like it. Yeah, let's not get weird about this. So, now, were you a little girl who loved animals, and what brought you to veganism and animal rights activism?
Yeah, so I think like most children, I always loved animals, particularly dogs and cats. I think because I was just exposed to them more. And as a little girl, I remember always asking my mom and my dad, please, can we get a dog? I would walk the dog. I would care for them. Like, I'll do, and yeah, exactly. And I lived in New York City, and so we were up on like the 30-something floor. My parents are like, you're going to have to take the elevator down every single day, multiple times a day, walk the dog and care for the dog. So it wasn't until I was around 10.
I was going to say, like, how young were you when you were going to be walking the street?
Right. With this, 10. My parents were like, okay, at 10, you can take the dog for a walk. So as a little girl, when we first got our dog Daisy, my brothers and I mean, it was the best experience of my childhood was this dog, and just having this unconditional love from this animal that, despite family dramas, I came from a divorced family and a lot of fighting, and this dog was just like the light of my life. It was what I looked forward to when I came home from school. She was what I looked forward to when I was sleeping and snuggling in bed. Like, that was my sister, I guess, you know?
Most of us hate our sisters until we go, but that's very sweet. Yeah. Strongly dislike.
Yeah, and so it wasn't until I was 13 where I sort of started thinking about where my food was coming from. In New York City, I never really saw farmed animals unless they were on my plate. And I did not make the connection between the body parts that laid there with the actual once living animal.
Well, they're so sanitized, right? So they look nothing like.
Right. But it was my dog that did this for me. Because I was driving in the car one hot summer day with my grandparents. We would go visit them every summer in Indiana. And in Indiana, they have these livestock trucks on the highway, just driving by.
I call them slaughter trucks or murder trucks.
Yeah, exactly. And they are murder trucks. And so I didn't know at the time what it was, but I was sitting in the car and my dog was sitting on my lap. And I just see out of the corner of my eye this big metal truck pulling alongside us. And I went to look, and there were pigs in there. And it was like upwards of 95 degrees. You could see them panting in there. There was no food, no water.
No air, a metal container.
Yes. and their little eyes and little snouts, like trying to peer through. They're stuffed in there. And I just remember looking back and forth between the dog that was sitting on my lap and the pigs that were inside that truck. And it didn't sit right with me. And later that night, my grandparents were making dinner, and it turned out it was some type of pork dip.
Oh,
And that was the first time I said, I'm not eating that.
yeah.
And that was the first time I made the connection between the once living individual and the food that was on my plate. And then
I'm from there. Yeah. And here you are on the couch at Wishbone. Yeah. Now, so many people focus on what they'd be missing when they go vegan rather than what they gain. In the case of food, I feel like people's palates get more adventurous and that their culinary horizons expand, beyond just like a slab of meat, 2 veg, and a piece of white buttered bread to mop up the gravy, right? Did an exciting new food world open up for you when you stopped eating animals?
yes, absolutely.
You live in New York too, you lucky bugger.
There's so many good vegan options in New York. I think you're right. A lot of people think of veganism as a sacrifice, and it is totally the opposite of that. I eat more of a variety of foods than I've ever eaten before. And I would say what I've explored more of is like the fruit world. So like more tropical fruits. And
Yeah, I mean, we're designed for that.
my parents are like very white, very like bland food. I grew up like on chicken nuggets and like spaghetti.
Canned spaghetti or made in a pot spaghetti?
Yeah, we did not eat healthy as kids. But every kid wanted to come to my house because we had all the snacks, Chips Ahoy, like Pepsi, like anything we wanted to eat.
We got dad's oatmeal cookies and apples. That was
Well, I think it actually made me, as I got older, want to eat healthy because I could have all this food. So I knew I could have it, and I craved what I couldn't have. Which,
of course, yeah. The rebel in you, right?
yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I want an apple, please.
Go live at 140 Queen Street West in Mount Forest and you can have your apple.
Yeah, so exploring fruit, and like I really love, there's this great box called Miami Fruit, and they give you this like tropical fruit box with like dragon fruits and even this raw cacao. Like
I've never had a dragon fruit, and I've never heard of this rock.
it's very cool, very cool. I just like to tell people though, like when you go vegan, it's just simply about replacing the ingredients that were never yours to take in the first place, right? So it's just finding those simple swaps.
That's true. Now, while I wish that everyone who went plant-based did it for the animals don't really care about the reasons why, but there has again been this rash of celebrities and influencers who have stopped being vegan. I don't really have a specific question about it. I guess just how does it make you feel, or just do you want to go on a little rant about it? Or
Yeah, sure. It's unfortunate because when we idolize these people and when we look up to them and put our faith into them and then they turn their backs on the animals, it's devastating.
they have such huge platforms and people are so influenced by them.
Absolutely. It's you start to question, it's like, were they really vegan for the animals to begin with? And that's the problem that we're facing right now, is it's like there's a lot of people that are putting out a ton of information. People are following these plant-based diets that they're doing, and then when they are maybe just eating fruits all day long and not feeling great, they blame it on veganism. And it's like, veganism isn't a diet. It's like an ethical stance. So it's either you're against animal abuse, period, all of the time. That's right. Or you just are an asshole.
I just can't even fathom it. That's the thing, right? Asshole's my favorite word to give someone a, what's the word when you criticize somebody?
Yeah, it's confusing because I think as a movement, we really need to keep our message central. We need to keep it together and unified, and we need to not mix things up. We need to say, okay, veganism is a stance against oppression towards animals, from the food we eat to the clothes we wear to the entertainment we partake in. And it's not like we are against that some of the time. Like, we are against that all the time. So if we start getting people that are plant-based that are like confusing our message, it makes us look disorganized and makes people think of veganism as just this diet or health trend.
Well, animals are what is central to it, and all the different ways in which we can exploit them or harm them or whatever.
And doing less of something that is wrong doesn't make it any less wrong.
Well, an animal's not any less dead because you ate one piece of cheese or whatever. Yeah. Now, in the world of social advocacy, animal rights is the new kid on the block. But animal advocates, we don't have any stake in this, like a vested financial interest or anything like that. I was going to say no skin in the game, but it's not really it's kind of a non-vegan phrase. So we're a very selfless movement. And I think it was Gary Yourofsky who said something along the lines that if all the social justice movements were to get together and sit around a table together, spewing moral outrage, when it came time to order lunch, they'd still have chicken wings on the menu, right? So like many people, I don't want anyone to suffer. But why do you think that people who care deeply about human rights are prepared to intersect with one another's causes, but they're no different than anyone else when in turning a blind eye to animal oppression?
It's a really good question, and my take on it would be because I think that when they're fighting for human rights, a lot of the time it doesn't cause them to have to change any of their own actions. So they can talk the talk all they want, but when they actually have to walk the walk, it's like, okay, they post on social media about a human rights issue. Great. Like, thank you for doing that. I applaud you for that. But when you go vegan, not only are you talking the talk, you're walking the walk every single day, 3 times a day with the food that you ate. So I guess just everybody wants to be a social justice warrior until they actually have to do something about it. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think also there's the public support. So like when you're fighting for a human rights issue, people will cheer you on and you're a hero.
Oh yeah, your head's all like, I can't get out of this room because my head's swollen up. So
yeah, they'll celebrate you. And then when you say you're vegan, you're a freak, you're a weirdo.
You suck.
And they don't want to make eye contact with.
Oh no,
that little bit of guilt, right? You know, it's
like you say the V word and people like slowly start like inching away. So and that's what we need to change. I think as a movement, we need to bring people in and show them like veganism is cool. Yeah. It is attractive to be compassionate. It's like the future is plant-based, but we just have to get rid of these stereotypes that are allowing people to perpetuate these excuses to continue hurting animals.
Absolutely. So who would you rather deal with and why? Someone who trolls and pushes back hard against veganism, or someone who's indifferent or just, I don't know.
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say a troll. Because I think that having no reaction at all is a lot scarier than having a defensive reaction. Because when you trigger somebody, that means that they're thinking about what you just said. You struck a chord. Yeah, exactly. And I think that when I was actually going through my vegan journey, I was pescatarian for a while, and somebody said to me, "What, do you just hate fish?" Like, that's really weird that you like claim to like animals, but you eat fish. Like, there's no difference. And I remember getting kind of like defensive. Like, it's different. You know, they're in the ocean and
just saying all these stupid things, but you were just blurting anything out.
Flustered by it. And that was a reaction because that meant that I was thinking through it. And 3 weeks later, I was vegan. So it was like, I think I've seen this happen over and over again with people. And actually an example of this is a few months ago, I was on Instagram and there was this one girl, big influencer, over 100,000 followers. She's posting about this fish box, this like bento fish box that she got. And it was some promo. She was obviously getting paid for it. And I commented on it and I just said, how shameful of you, somebody that people look up to, that has so many followers, to promote not only animal abuse, but an industry that is destroying our planet, something that could cause people to get sick and ill from the mercury poisoning or parasites. Shame on you. And she wrote back like this, long thing. She was getting really defensive. We went back and forth for actually a few days. About a month or two later, I get a message in my inbox and I forgot about this whole interaction. And she said, hey, I just want to apologize for the back and forth that we were having. Mind you, I maintained my cool, my calm. I was very kind and compassionate, but stern. Like I wasn't letting her, push me around, but I was still kind in my approach. She said, I just want to apologize and let you know that you're right. And she's like, I looked into this, and she's like, I took down the post.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. That's really good. Very good.
So you never know like where you can have an impact and where those little comments and can make a difference. And at first they might be defensive, but that's them thinking through these things. And then I ran into her in person at an event.
It's a good thing this had already resolved, right? Because that would have been... Oh, hello. I'm trying to be all...
Oh, I would have went right up to her for sure. And like, let's continue this in person. Cool. Let me get my mic and my camera set up 1 second. Yeah.
Now, I truly believe humor is that spoonful of sugar that helps people swallow very unpalatable and hard truths. It lowers defenses, and it's hard to dislike someone who's making you laugh, right? And then you add in some creativity and unimpeachable facts, and that's so good at cutting through society's groupthink as well. You use this approach on your YouTube show, Jane Me's Corner, and your podcast, Just So You Know, with your delightful co-host, Justina Adorno. What made you realize this would be such a great strategy, and can we get away with just about anything using humor?
This is a great question. So it actually all happened very accidentally. Because when I first got into activism, I was going to a lot of Anonymous for the Voiceless Cubes. I was going to slaughterhouse vigils. I was pouring blood in supermarkets and yelling at everybody that,
Oh, all the fun, joyful stuff.
oh, I was really having a great time. Not. I was like waking up in a panic and like going to sleep, like crying myself to sleep. I was like yelling at my family and like pouring their milk cartons while staring at them, being like, not your milk, pouring it down. I mean,
Kind of like I was with my kids.
I remember my dad like taking the egg carton out of the fridge, and he's like, "Chicken periods?" Like, and because I would like label everything, and it just I
Call it what it is.
call it what it is. I mean, I'm not wrong, right? Like I wasn't wrong, but I think that the approach wasn't something that, for me at least, that they were resonating.
I was going to say, perhaps it didn't resonate with your family the same way you thought.
There are no more milk cartons in my dad's refrigerator, though, I will say. But I am. Thank you. But I think that as activists, we need to constantly look at, is what we're doing effective? And so I was working for a film company right out of college called Cave Light Films. And amazing, amazing work. Jordan, he taught me so much in editing and producing and doing interviews. And so
I like kidnap her, and she's staying here and tutoring us.
it's the film industry. I mean, films are what really got me to go vegan, right? So I was like, if I can reach the mainstream with this message, why wouldn't I, right? So we made about 6 short documentaries, which ended up on mainstream platforms like Now This, and got over 75 million views on animal rights messages. So that being said, Jordan from Cave Light said to me one day, "What are you doing this weekend? Like, what are you doing tonight?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to an AV Cube, naturally. What else would a 21-year-old be doing on a Friday night?" Okay. I'm at an AV Cube. And so he's like, "I'll come and film your outreach. We'll go together." So he came and filmed it, and I didn't think anything of it. And then we got back, watched the footage that next week, and we were both cracking up. Because it was just the awkwardness of like the conversations with the people. And I don't realize my facial expressions. I didn't realize that until I watched it back. I'm like, oh my God. And if Botox were vegan, I mean, I probably should get some. But I was looking and he goes, oh my gosh, there's something here. He's like, let's do an edit and let's see what we're working with. So we took the 3 hours of footage that we filmed and my wackiness, and for some reason, like all the lunatics love me. Like I just attract them. So I'm ending up with these like really Yeah, really weird conversations, but also like getting the message out there. And it was in a different way than what I was seeing online done by people like Joey Cardstrong and Earthling Ed. And they're doing amazing work, but I'm simply not Earthling Ed. I mean, I'm a little cuter and much more of an asshole. So that was kind of the idea. So we did an edit and made an episode. It was like 3 hours shortened to like 8 minutes. And cut a few little clips from it. And I was so nervous to release the first one because I was like, are people going to get this? Like, is this insensitive? Like, I don't know how this is going to be seen.
Some, of course, would be, but come on. We have to try different approaches.
Anyways, so we put it out and it seemed to do really well. And then over the next couple of months, put out a few more episodes. And now I film weekly and I kind of just am myself. And that's what it is it's taking a form of approach to activism that is just being yourself, using your authentic approach as opposed to me walking around and being all angry all the time. I'm like, how many more people can I yell at? Like,
who else wants to be pissed off in this?
I'm like, I can't sustain it. Right. Yeah. So in order to sustain activism in the long run, be the most effective, I just needed to be myself, which like me as a person outside of activism, like I am the class clown, the goofball, the total freak and weirdo. Like that's just who I was. So just taking that and applying that. And the reason that I know it's effective is because when I see the bacon comments coming in, I'm like, yes, I'm reaching the people.
There we go. Ping. I just wanted to say too, somebody mentioned to me many years that there used to be this doll when I was a kid called Hugo, Man of 1,000 Faces. And they started calling me Hugo because I was always like, had all these crazy expressions, right? So anyway, you a fellow Hugo. Yeah, you're a fellow. Yeah. So one person's cool is another's cringe. I try not to judge other activists because with each person on the planet being uniquely wired, we have to resonate with a wide swath of the population, and this requires a variety of approaches, and doing something beats doing nothing. So what's your favorite form of activism? Doesn't have to be the most effective, just what you love to do, but feels so good. I love marches and content creation. I love that feeling of getting out there and hollering.
Totally. I love that. I love the educational approach is probably what I prefer and feel the most comfortable doing, but I think that there's a time and a place for disruptions for sure, which I do a lot of. And I love that you said, like, I don't really like to judge other people's activism because I think that those tactics may reach people that I'm not able to reach.
There's some niche that, they're like, that just, hit me, right?
Totally. Yeah. So I would say the educational approach.
Now, I always say I do anything for animals. I've always said this. Well, when I see others getting naked or wearing on lingerie, I'm like, perhaps I was hasty. But you participated in demos wearing lingerie. So what makes it an effective strategy? I talked to Ingrid Newkirk about it, and she, she really wised me up. But why do you think it's such an effective strategy? And then, of course, what's the blowback?
Totally. So as a person, I am a little bit more reserved. I don't feel comfortable as much doing these type of actions. However, like whatever I can do for the animals to at least get people's attention, I will. And PETA's used this approach throughout the years because I think sex sells. And when we look at what the meat industry is doing in terms of using sex to sell certain products, like having hot supermodels in bikinis, eating juicy burgers, like they're using that to sell.
Well, the tobacco industry used to do that sort of thing. So you have to meet, and surpass what they're doing.
Why not use sex to sell compassion and kindness to animals as opposed to products of violence? So I did participate in a few lingerie demos, which we made a documentary called The Lingerie Protest, which was women all over the world getting together and hosting these lingerie demos to push positive messages about animal rights into wherever they were located. And I found that it was a super positive form of outreach because we were so vulnerable that the public they weren't coming up to us being like defensive and mean at first because they saw that we were kind of willing to bear it all for this cause that we cared so deeply about. They were taking pictures with us. So when the pictures are reposted online, those messages were getting out there in one way or the other. I get that it's a controversial topic, though, because some people will say, well, you're exploiting yourself, you're doing this. I didn't feel that way.
You choose to do it. It's not, nobody forced you. And that's what Ingrid was saying. She said that when the lads did it, though, they didn't get as much interest, right? So she said, them standing there in a Speedo just didn't do it for people. So, yeah.
I mean, I just found that, it was something where people were resonating with the message and open to having these conversations, and whether
My eyes are up here.
right. And I think, when we look at the animals, they don't have control of what happens to their bodies. So for me, it was powerful to be able to say, I'm going to use my body in whatever way I can to advocate for them. And not for nothing, but I do think that there is something to be said for showing people that you can be a healthy, fit vegan. Maybe that's one way to draw people in, and then hit them with the animal rights stuff. Man, yeah. And I want to be clear, though, veganism is not about what you look like. It is not about your body weight whatsoever. But hell, if I were non-vegan and I saw some pretty good looking people that were in lingerie, and I would be at least drawn to it at first, and then I would read the message.
Right. So, yeah. Well, yeah, you catch people's attention, that's for sure. And then it's up to you after to deliver the information.
Yeah, we're in a time where it's the media doesn't want to talk about it, even though we're risking pandemics and life on Earth is quite literally at risk. Nobody wants to talk about it. And I'm what can we do to get attention? So you look at environmental activists that are throwing soup at paintings. It's well, they feel that they have to do that because you're not talking about the issue. So maybe and then when they go on these big talk shows like Piers Morgan, he's why did you throw soup at the painting? They're because I wouldn't be here if I didn't throw soup at the painting. Yeah, exactly.
Now, we all know that there are dangers to being an animal activist, whether putting ourselves in legal peril or jeopardizing our physical safety. Sadly, the latter became all too real with the killing of dear Regan Russell. So we all have a story or two. Does anything in particular stand out to you? Anything you've had to endure?
A few things. I think, I don't ever want to play the victim, because it's what the animals are going through is so much worse than what we could ever experience. Even when I'm arrested and put in jail, I'm still in a cell that's bigger than what the animals live their entire lives in.
There's light at the end of the tunnel for you, right? You will eventually get to leave and go about your life, right?
Yeah, and I think, as an activist, you get to a point where it's I would die for this cause, like Regan Russell. If it came to that, if it would mean that this would end animal agriculture or get a message out there.
I think there'd be a lineup of us wanting to do that. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think we have to risk our freedom and our safety sometimes in order to get the message out there. And it's always inspiring to see so many activists
I was going to say, we got ourselves a resident jailbird over here.
A resident little troublemaker over there. Peter, yeah, David.
He's good.
So I'm so inspired by the work that they're doing, and I don't feel so alone, and that's what makes us do it. But I guess a story that comes to mind, there's a few. I guess this one's kind of funny. Well, we decided to do a art installation demo to raise awareness about the dairy industry, and it's with this organization called Speciesism.wtf. And they were doing these anti-milk demos all over the world, parts of the UK. They did them in Germany and all around Europe. And so we were let's bring this to New York. I mean, let's do it. It was 20 degrees outside, though, and these art installations require us to strip down and wear these funnels over our boobs, and you're in this bloody underwear, kind of out there. But
it's like the Pink video, I suppose, right? I've never seen that.
Is she against the dairy industry as well? No. Okay. Well, anyway, it's 20 degrees outside in New York at the time, and I'm there's no way we can stand outside for that long. So let's do this inside, plus Grand Central.
20, you're saying Fahrenheit then. Oh, we're in Celsius here, and we're going, that's a nice day, Okay, somebody quick do the conversion.
It's snowing, yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, there's no way we can do this. So I was like, we'll get great visuals inside Grand Central. So next thing you know, 3 women in these outfits, plus 2 other ones with a bullhorn and one that was like a down cow. We storm into Grand Central, we strip down, and we're standing there for about 5 minutes. And then, of course, the police come over. Mind you, we are very peaceful. We're not bothering anybody. There's like people that are over there fighting in the corner. There's somebody that's like on drugs, passed out, and like they're worried about us.
Yeah.
That we're just doing an art installation, you know? So they come over, they're like, okay, please. Totally. I'm like, why are you over here? There's so much else going on over there. But they come over, the cops come over, and we're very respectful. We listen. They're like, put the bullhorn down. We put the bullhorn down. They're like, you have to get up off the floor because you're obstructing traffic. So the woman that was on the ground stands up. They're like, you girls have to leave. And we're like holding our signs that say milk is not humane. And we're like with the tubes going. So
Left that to the end.
the tubes coming out with the milk, it's, to show that our babies were taken and that the milk is then being stolen. So anyway, they tell us to leave and we're like, okay, no problem. So we go to leave and I turn back around and 2 of my friends are like being held by the cops. And I was like, I'm not leaving them, And that hesitation, next thing you know, my hands are behind my back, I'm handcuffed, and the cop is like holding my milk carton. It was just that first, right? Yeah. That's like holding, I'm like, come on. So I end up in this cell in Grand Central. They made us take off the funnels. My friend Justine and I are like naked. And our friends that were filming ended up bringing us our robes. But, we were just sitting inside the cell and we were just like, well, we didn't expect this to happen today. I'm like, I would much rather get arrested for something else, but here we are. Yeah. At least I'm like, I knew her, and we're friends. But then we ended up outreaching the cops. So it ended up turning into, they had our podcast. They like knew all about veganism. Cause I said to them, I'm like, do you know why we're here today? Like, we're here to raise awareness about factory farming and what's happening to animals and dairy. Long story short,
We're both each other's captive audience at that point, so you may as well take advantage of it.
yeah. And of course, as human beings, like when you're put in a cell, it's just animals in general, and you're confined and you're like, I can't leave. It's a scary feeling. But I just had to keep reminding myself that like, this is important to raise awareness about a bigger issue so this happens to less animals. So that action ended up going viral around the UK, and I think the arrest is like actually what helped generate the controversy. And I think Pierce Morgan. I think so. I think Pierce Morgan and his team saw that because it was going around the UK, and
That's something sensational.
totally. Well, they saw me with the tubes coming out of my boobs. They're like, let's get this idiot on the show, and
Clown.
yeah, let's totally embarrass her.
Meanwhile, I don't think you're that embarrassable if you're walking around. Yeah.
Well, he probably didn't realize that, like, I know the facts and, like, I prepped
I
for...
thought you were some dope.
Totally. Yeah.
Now, who do you fangirl over in the AR activism world? Now, for me, it's Ingrid Newkirk. And when she stopped by the lab a year ago, and a couple of you were here then, I was all awkward and corny, and I was like obnoxiously braying like a donkey when I was laughing. It was terrible. But anyway, she was so kind. But yeah, it was.
I could totally see that.
And
There's so many people that I just admire and I aspire to do more of what they're doing. But I think that we have to move away from like idolizing people.
I was into her since I was 14 years old. So what, about 15 years, right? Okay, 44. Okay, 44.
Nobody would ever know. But yeah, so I really love the work that like Zoe Rosenberg is doing. And she's, such a young, inspiring activist where she is going in and actually doing the direct actions by taking the animals out. Because like for those individual animals, that's like curly hair. Yeah. Yeah. And I just adore her and like the work that she's doing. And so many other activists, like just around the world. Earthling Ed has always been somebody that has, when I was first getting into activism, learning how to articulate these issues and respond to the pushback that we get.
Like there's no arguing with this, and I'm speaking calmly, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. Of course, we care about all animals, but we all have that certain issue that just rips us apart. What would be yours?
Oh, it's hard to pick up. I'm so against all of them.
I know that's exactly.
I guess two that I really focus heavy on is dairy. I've done a few, a lot of actually just anti-dairy actions because I just find it so deeply disturbing of like taking babies from their moms and they're like stealing breast milk that's like meant for the baby, and then
It's so twisted on so many levels.
watching the little babies be killed for veal. I'm like, it's so sick and twisted.
And what they do to the mothers and to impregnate them. Like, come on. Like, come on.
That issue seems like so clear to me, and I'm like, how do people not get this? It is so perverted. And then fur, I really focus heavily on because I think it's an issue that we can be strategic about because we're so close to ending it, and I think the public support is on our side, so we can really hit the streets and do these anti-fur marches and get loud and disrupt the designers, and that's an issue that we can take a different approach with when it comes to activism. So fur is just another level of vanity and just disgusting.
Yeah, like I was fighting against fur back when I was 19 years old, and it seemed like we had finally gotten rid of it, but then Canada Goose came along and made it all trendy again. So those were the good old days, throwing paint on people.
Yeah, all for it. Bring it back. I don't have an issue with it.
Now, so often people can't empathize with another until they've walked in their shoes or hooves. And doing my research, I came across The Next Girl. It was quite a distressing film, but I think necessarily so if we want to open minds, eyes, and hearts to these issues. It put me kind of in mind of a film that was done by Miguel Endara. I don't know if you know him. It's called Norm, and it was set in a dystopian world where raping women was socially and legally accepted, and then he had this direct line to animal rights. Can you speak a little bit about The Next Girl? But you don't have to give it away, although, I mean, wow. Yeah. We knew it was coming, but...
Well, so The Next Girl film was a film that I starred in, which told the story of a young adolescent woman who, when she was born, was separated from her mother, and then she was in this human trafficking situation where she's amongst other women that have also been through the same separation, and then they're forcefully impregnated. So like there's actually a scene in the film where I am like forcibly impregnated, and then my baby is taken away. And so this story being told from a human perspective, I think was powerful because people can sometimes relate to people more than they can to animals. And then there is an animal rights angle on it. I'm sure you guys, I can kind of guess what that is, but for the general public, it's like when they're watching this, they have no idea what the message is until the end. And so a lot of the feedback that I got, they were really shocked and really disturbed by it. On another level, my dad was like crying after seeing it. And I was like, now whenever I hear or see that he like has a piece of cheese or something that's non-vegan, I'm like, The Next Girl. The Next Girl. Think about it. I'll send him like a picture from the film of me like in a terrible situation. So I know. Yeah. So it's a film that I was really honored to be a part of, and it is going around film festivals. It was in Cannes worldwide. It's now in going around an Asia Film Festival, and
Great feeling.
it's going to be in Toronto too. Yeah. Oh.
They should have, is it at the International Vegan Film Festival?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm going to probably be there for that. I think so.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. International Toronto Film Festival.
Oh, TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's in there. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you even know you're sitting in?
I honestly don't know where I am or where I'm going half the time. In fact, I'm supposed to be going to Germany tomorrow or the next day, and what part of Germany is the question? So I had told people I was going to be in Berlin. And so I'm texting all these people like, yeah, let's meet up. I'm in Berlin. Turns out I'm flying to Frankfurt. And I'm like 6 hours away from Berlin. And I'm like, oops, sorry. Oops.
Now, I truly believe it's the dorks of this world who are going to save the animals and make other radical changes, because we don't seem to have the same desire to walk in lockstep with the rest of the herd, don't have the same level of groupthink and adherence to social norms. And we probably care a lot less what people think. Like, you don't care that you're on the outside looking in. Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it took me a while to get to a point where I embraced the dork. Yeah, because as a person growing up in school, I always wanted to be liked. I wanted to fit in. I was kind of the person that kept things light, very go with the flow. I didn't want to create problems. And so when I became an activist, I think a lot of my friends and people that had known me for years were like, who is this? Like, what happened to her, you know? And
you're just this bitter hag walking around, you know, and yelling at people. Yeah.
like, what is going on here? So that being said, as an activist, in order to do the actions we do, we have to stop caring so much of what other people think of us and keep the end goal in mind.
Keep your ego out of dance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, like, you know, I want the message to resonate with people. So I also try to keep in mind, like, okay, when people think of vegans, and this is the approach that I try to keep in my outreach, is no matter what, I want them to have a positive feeling after interacting with me.
Just think we're buzzkills.
They might not remember exactly what I said, but they'll remember how I made them feel. So if we can, you know, somehow, whether they're like, oh, she made me laugh, or, oh, like, I also like animals, like I sort of resonate with what she was saying, you know, that kind of thing, I think would be really helpful.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at before with making people laugh. If somebody likes you, you know, they're more willing to listen to what you have to say. Like they feel more relaxed to relax their defenses.
Yeah. And when we go vegan, it comes to a point, which I'm sure you guys can relate to, where it's like we're in this crowd with everybody else. Where humans are social creatures. And then when you go vegan, it's like you have to step away from the crowd and you're like looking out into all your beloved friends, family, and the world and say, what you're doing is wrong. And I don't agree with that. And then you are this, like, in a way, leader, right? Because, you know, everybody else is just following what everyone else is doing. So that's why I think the next big step for the vegan movement is really to try to get the majority of people,
them to want, for them, people to be attracted to our movement, like where they're like, wow, this is cool. This makes sense. Look at these people.
We need to use media and influencers and celebrities that have influence over a lot of people to really start pushing this message hard. And I think a great example of this is when you look at Will and Grace back in the 2000s, early 2000s, where Will and Grace helped to normalize being gay. And you saw it as something that was like just normal and cool and fun.
I know we need to get so many more vegan themed storylines and characters out there. And they're just, you know, like anyone else, you know, except they're vegan.
Totally. And then right. And, you know, we have some celebrities like Moby, Billie Eilish, and that is helpful. And Moby's super outspoken about it. But, you know, if we can really get a bulk of those celebrities on board, because right now you look at all these influencers on TikTok and, like, no offense, but I don't need to see you just like dancing around and, like, you know, you're not helping at all. And you're eating a burger,
Face and breathing my air.
and you're eating a burger while doing it. And I'm like, girl,
What a wasted opportunity. Yeah.
seriously. Some of these videos have like 6 million views, and I'm like,
I'm going to dance around in my underpants at home and eat a veggie burger.
you gotta try it. Take one for the team.
Tighten things up really well. Yeah. So we're almost done, but I wanted to save the worst for last and talk about your interview with Piers Morgan on his show. Jamie Ann Piers sitting in a tree. Huh?
Not K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
My ass.
Oh, Lord, no.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Jamie. Nobody wants to because
scientists.
nobody wants to. The reason these restaurants are going out of business, nobody likes vegan food apart from die-hard vegans.
How did this come about? What's one thing you wish you could change that you said? And conversely, something you're really pleased that you managed to squeeze in? Because it's hard, because he does not leave much of a window.
He's a pro. He knows exactly how to throw a million
Well, how to piss people off, too. Like how to get them all wound up and then they're, and then you go, well.
And I never meet a healthy looking vegan, and I never meet one who doesn't yap on and on and on about being a vegan.
Well, all I knew is the number one thing is I had to keep my calm, because if I didn't, everybody would attack the way that I said things as opposed to
The ass vegan.
exactly, as opposed to listening to what I was saying. So the optics of it were extremely important. And I think the way that the interview came about was they saw the anti-dairy demo. That's the only, like, I have no idea, because I'm like, why would he interview me? I don't know. Yeah. And also I'm in the US and it was really random. I woke up to an email one day from his team, some producer out. I thought it was a scam. I thought it was a scam. And then I read through it and I looked up the producer's name on LinkedIn and it was actually a real guy. And I was just like, oh no, I don't want to do this. That's so scary. Should I just not respond? And then I thought through it and I was like, wait, this could be a really good opportunity.
That's my underpants.
Well, I did. So now you have to dance. And so it happened. So I responded and I said, can you give me a little bit more information? Like, when do you want to do this? I'm like, what is the topic? You know? So they responded back and they gave me a topic that was going to be about the farmer protests that were happening in Germany and how vegans are targeting farmers and how dare we do that when the farmers are suffering. So I was like, oh, I got this.
That little tiny violin.
Right. I'm like, the farmers, it's the farmers. Yeah. So I was like prepping for that. I had that in mind. I had my boyfriend pretending to be Pierce Morgan and like interrupting me every time. And I had the sound bites ready. I was ready to go. 2 days later, they say they didn't give me the exact day it would be when they emailed back. So 2 days later, I was leaving yoga and I get an email from the team being like, are you ready to go at 3:30 p.m. today East? Because we're ready for you. And we also changed the topic.
I was like, wow, talk about, giving yourself the handicap, right? Like giving yourself the...
For sure. They knew exactly what they were doing. And so I was like, okay, I'll be there. See you then. So now the new topic was, is veganism dying? And you start to see that there's a lot of vegan restaurants that are closing down, that there are vegan restaurants adding meat to the menu, that vegan stocks are failing. So now I'm like, okay, let me think this through. What angle do I want to take on this? And my angle and my idea behind this was, well, 90% of restaurants are closing down. We're also coming out of a pandemic. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they're vegan. In fact, like when we look at stocks over the years, the internet stocks crashed 25 years ago. That doesn't mean we don't use the internet today, right? So stocks, they ebb and flow. So I had all these ideas about the vegan trends, and also Veganuary just had 1 million signups this past January. So I was like, all right, I got this. So I had 2 podcasts in the studio to record for PETA, for the Just So You Know podcast. So I said to the producers of that show, I said, hey guys, like, I'm going to have to do this interview, like, after the first episode, like, in between. They're like, yeah, let's do it. So it was, like, such a stressful day. Oh, my God. It was so I literally get off, like, from this data-heavy podcast interview that I'm doing with Justina to then the Pierce Morgan thing. He brings me on. And of course, I'm nervous. I mean, how could you not be? Because I'm like, okay, if I stutter or I say something wrong, like, then I don't want to make veganism look bad. Like, then I feel that I failed the animals.
You don't want to do the service.
Of course. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, let's just do this. And so he actually didn't focus as much on the trends as I thought he was going to. And instead, he had me debating this cattle rancher woman, Tommy Lahren.
Yeah.
And he's good at what he does. I mean, he knows how to throw 1 million excuses. And I think because I had prepped for it and I had the sound bites I wanted to get in there ready to go, that's why it went better than I think it could have. But I wish I would have said, so they started talking about how they agree. Tommy and Pierce said, we agree that factory farming is bad. We're totally against that, they said. What I should have said is, well, 99% of animals are coming from factory farms.
Yes.
So like you're supporting that industry. But what I went for instead was I said, at the end of the day, the animal still is sent to the slaughterhouse. And that's where vegans are mad. That's where we don't want to see that happen.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, and had you had like another 30 seconds to think about it, you would have been, whoa, actually.
he barely let me speak. So I had to like cut her off. I was like, I got to get in there. And then he's like, okay, you got 30 seconds. Yeah. So I managed to speak a little bit. And I think also like he was insulting. Like he's like, I've never seen a healthy looking vegan. And you know what? I don't even need to respond to that. Like, look at you and look at me.
Jeez, Steve.
Yeah. Like if I'm looking unhealthy, like I don't even want to know what you're looking like, you know? Yeah. Right. Like, thank you, Pierce. You are just the epitome of what everybody wants to be. Right.
They call themselves like vegan sausage rolls. It doesn't taste like a sausage roll.
Yeah. And I think the more we can get on these type of shows, get the vegan message mainstream, the better. But we need representatives for this movement that are going to look at the optics and really maintain that where we look informed, we have our shit together, and we have the facts, and we're able to always bring it back to the animals where possible.
And we're engaging.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So should we give a friendly little shout out to our mutual buddy, Ray Polito? I'm going to say such a genuine, hilarious, unique person, prolific, articulate, dedicated, kick-ass activist who will never turn his back on the animals. And I know he's a huge Trump fan. He's not. He's not. He's very vocal that he's not. You're like, what the hell?
Look at, you're going to spread these, you're starting these little rumors.
These little sound bites, like Piers is going to get hold of this and he's like, this guy loves Trump, you know? So,
Poor Ray.
yeah. So anyway, just kind of in closing, humans can be pretty adaptable creatures, even when it comes to giving up and getting over addictions. But when it comes to messing with their food addictions, they seem fully prepared to extinct themselves and happily, I feel like I'm in the Jerry Springer ending here. I said that to Alec the other day. They seem fully prepared to extinct themselves and happily take other species down the tubes with them. For being so intellectually superior, although I would argue that point when you see how brilliant and evolved other animals are in so many ways that suit them perfectly, humans oddly seem hell-bent on destroying themselves over their taste buds. It was a thrill to have you here in Toronto. We'll put all your points of contact in the show notes, but if you could just please tell us in a New York accent the ones you want people to check out for sure.
I think I can do that. So you can follow me at It's Jamie's Corner, and yeah, that's where I'm at. And also my website's itsjamiescorner.com. And I would love to hear from you. And if there's any activism ideas that you want to do together, let's get involved. Like, I am always on the street and I could always use a community to work with. So let's connect and let's stand in solidarity always. Like, please unite. Like, let's just put our differences aside and just defend, keep the focus on the animals.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here at Wishbone, be like a creativity incubator. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's not about Wishbone, but so you want to give your signature look, one of your signature looks into the camera? You want to go for it? Your double take or your WTF, your We the Free, we'll say. We won't say what else. Your We the Free look.
The We the Free look, can you give me something to like work off of?
Somebody say something. Give her something to shock her.
Suggest we sit beside her and we give her the one line and it's like, oh, plants have feelings.
There we go. Perfect. All right. So have a safe trip home. It was great to have you here. And we're going to have, when we do the show, we're going to have a very special tune by a very special activist, Steve Marisha. Is that how you said it? Marasha. Oh, yeah, like Sriracha. That's right. I'm sorry. Sorry. Steve Marasha. And Romeo and Jackson and Natalie. Thank you. All right. I appreciate that.
Thank you.